Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. We're going to talk today about a subject that actually is super, super important to me, and I think will be really important to you guys, which is like, what is the best way to learn how to draw, honestly? Is it to come in really loose or to come in tight? And with my years experience of teaching over the last 3 decades, I have just a ton of information about this, of what I've seen over those 30 years that I want to share with you today. And I'm going to probably do quite a bit of drawing to show you what I'm talking about. Um, and I think also talk a little bit about the psychology behind these different methods and what their benefits and detriments are. So hopefully you leave here today with a stronger opinion about how you want to um, progress, with your drawing process based on like which methodology is the best for you. So let's get to it. I'm going to head over to Photoshop as usual. Swenley and Rotunjay are going to be running the chat off of this recording. Sorry, I can't be with you guys at CTNX this weekend. So we're doing this pre-recorded. Let's head over to Photoshop, as I was saying. Here we go. Okay. So which way is best, loose or tight, right? So I did these very quickly for the thumbnail to just show you 3 different methods of drawing, right? And in doing this, I started thinking, what is it that comes out of each of these different manners? With tight drawing, there's a very strong sense of obligation to the reference, right? And that's because there is an accuracy that we're trying to hit, which, to tell you the truth, ironically, and you're going to hear me use the word ironic probably quite a bit in this video, ironically really just leads to copying. And as we've said in the past, there's some things that are really good about copying. It's not like I'm trying to be pessimistic about the term copying. Uh, you know, Part of copying is seeing, right? Like being able to see what you're looking at. It doesn't mean you understand what you're looking at. And that's a massive difference, right? Again, very different to just look and copy versus look and understand with maybe a little bit of copy, right? Because trying to get accuracy. It also ironically leads to pretty dead drawing, meaning not forceful, not fluid, not alive, right? There's a sort of constipation, let's call it, to the work, right? And I think a lot of what drives that is a sense of fear. Sometimes it's not fear. Sometimes, like I said, um, sometimes it's perfectionism, and that's kind of a funny word because some people are stifled under the concept of that perfectionism, and some people really thrive in it, right? They just want to get things right, really neat, really perfect, and they love that. They love the drive of that, right? And that's fine. Then there's loose. Now, with loose drawing, you're searching, right? And what you're doing is you're kind of getting stuff down on the paper very quickly, right? Where with the tight drawing, for the drawing to materialize into anything takes longer. It takes longer periods of time because usually you're trying to be really accurate and you're measuring more, right? So it takes longer. You're learning more with looseness because you are searching, because you are discovering and you're trying to figure things out. It's not copying, right? So there's a little bit less of a detachment to the model. Or should we say you're giving yourself a little bit more room to be detached over time versus immediately, right? Like you're working yourself up to it, which personally I think is a little bit more of a, I don't know, a healthier approach, which leads me to the next point, which is it's less stressful. I have to even dare say, in some ways, I think it's more fun. And it just gives you more opportunity. There's just more opportunity to think, more opportunity to discover, more opportunity for you to learn. And that's what I want to show you today and kind of prove out. And, feel free to disagree by the end of all this. But um, what I thought I would do is I brought in 3 different artists, some of which maybe some of you have heard of before or not. And I almost hope you haven't on some of them because I'd love the opportunity to show you new artists, right? So let's take a look here at Syd Mead. So Syd Mead, if you have never heard of Syd Mead before, Syd Mead probably one of the top conceptualists, sort of an industrial designer of the future. Uh, and he was, he went to Art Center, which is an awesome school here in Pasadena, California. And I got lucky. I did get to meet him at the school while I was teaching there. He had come as a guest lecturer, which was such an awesome opportunity. He just passed away not that long ago, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago. But what he was most famous for was probably Blade Runner. I would say Blade Runner is probably what he's most known for. He designed a lot of the cars and the architecture of that film franchise. Uh, so I brought these sketches in, which is kind of part of the idea of thinking about loose, just to show you that, the pros work loose, right? Why? Like, why work loose? Because it's fast, right? It's really fast. Why does fast matter? To me, fast matters because you are trying to get an idea down on the page as holistically as possible and as quickly as possible, because you don't want to invest your time in something that's going to fail, right? So, in the corporate world, it's called, fail early and fail fast, right? And there's a reason for that, right? It's cheaper, right? Now, for an artist, you might not be worried about the money aspect of this per se. Maybe you're not at a job and you're not freelancing, it's for yourself. Well, then consider it an emotional cheaper, right? It's not a big cost to you emotionally to have sketches and sketch and sketch and sketch, and you're fine throwing them out, right? Because they didn't take that long. You're not that invested in them. It's not a long-term relationship. It's a very short-term relationship. It's like speed dating, right? So you're going from sketch to sketch to sketch, not a big deal. I don't like that one. I don't like that one. I like that one, right? Oh, this one's pretty cool. Maybe I should put in a little more work. It's not good. So back to speed dating, speed dating, speed dating. This one is better. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let me invest more time. No, this is working out. Let me invest more time. Oh, let me invest more time. Oh my God, I'm getting married. Right? So it's this thinking that I really want to sell you guys on today. Draw loose, right? Now these are from imagination. I would imagine that he's drawing from imagination here, and trying to figure out this scene, right? I think ironically it's even harder when you draw from a model because you have a picture, right? So the skills it takes to do this, though, right? In this looseness, you can see. Look, here's a guy who was one of the top-notch pros of the entertainment industry, and he still was roughing out perspective. Go figure, right? It's like you could see this plane, you could see the wall plane, so he understood like the angle of this car and how it was going to sit in front of this doorway, right? Some other sketches, right? Like he's looking at the ergonomics and how people fit into the side of this, right? Um, Now, I brought this in because I want you to be aware this leads to this. I guarantee there were sketches of this. There were thumbnails of this, right? Lots of them before he decided to pick this view, right? This composition, and then start roughing it in and get a sense of what these machines are going to look like, right? Like he didn't do this one drawing, do it in one shot and go all the way to render. It doesn't happen like that. Okay. I could promise you that. He did not do that. Okay. Pros don't typically work like that, right? Because it's a waste of time. Because you can go down the rabbit hole, and no matter how great you are, it could be a failed piece, right? There could be a lot of problems with it. And then you only know as you get near the end, you want to know right away, right at the beginning. And I just want you to be aware that sketches like these lead to images like this, right? So here's a Sid Mead painting, right? And just amazing, right? Super gorgeous. Yeah, such a visionary. He was such a visionary, just spectacular, spectacular art. So check out Sid Mead. If you can't see it here in the layers, let me write it here real quick by hand. SYD, Sid Mead, MEAD. Highly recommend checking out his work. A master, definitely a master of his time. Okay. The next guy, most of you may not have heard of either. This guy's name is Wilhelm M. Busch, right? Just awesome, right? Super like loose drawing, fast, linear, but kind of like sketched out, not like perfectly neat. But his line is pretty definitive. It's kind of this weird space, right? Definitive line, but like loose drawing. quick compositions like would come out of this. You could see the perspective and the setups, right? But there's still a looseness in how he does it. He's just so damn good that loose is not crazy loose, right? But it's still loose. So that I would share some of his work with you because honestly, to me, it's like mind blowing, like just so good. Here's Super Loose. So I like looking at artists drawing at this stage because you really get to see how somebody thinks. He's very shapy, right? Like look at the silhouette. Look in one line. He did the back, the shoulder, the tiger, its head. Look at how he shaped out the leg. Very forceful shape, by the way, right? He got the elbow there. So he's very into seeing the shape of something quickly to put this composition together. But look, how long did this drawing take him? Probably under 5 minutes. Looking at it, the amount of like line that's in it, I would calculate under 5 minutes. And he put this whole piece together, right? That could become something amazing, right? Could become an amazing painting. Love this. Now, sketchy, by the way, and loose don't mean like little scratchy lines. His lines are relatively long-ish, like medium to long lines. And, look at the personality. Damn, right? Like just so much personality in the face and the hands, the way this guy is sitting. Just awesome. Look at the scale that he understands, right? Like big to medium to small, right? Again, just great. And I just grabbed a few drawings. I have a giant like folder full of his work that is just breathtaking. I brought this in here to show you where this goes, right? So after looseness comes more and more tight. And these aren't yet total tightness. I don't know if he painted right off of this at the end or not, but wow, the guy can draw, right? Can draw really, really well, right? Super well. So his name, again, is Wilhelm Busch right here, M. Busch. Yeah, spectacular, right? Spectacular. Now, this last guy, probably most of you have heard of. I know some of the other, artists on the internet have talked about Heinrich Clay before. You got to love Clay. I mean, just amazing, right? Long, very long lines, very fluid lines, with lots of force, lots of form, lots of rhythm, lots of searching, right? He's an excellent, of all the people I've shown you so far tonight, he's actually, I think, even the best example of what I'm trying to get at this evening. He's got force, form, and shape going on, and he's letting his line wander here and there to try to figure those things out. But the overall piece has force, form, and shape in it, right? Yeah, I love these two horse drawings here at the top are some of my favorites of all time of Heinrich Clay. Yeah, just spectacular, right? So I think I brought in, I brought in a couple of photographs, and I thought we would play around with different drawing methodologies, I guess, drawing methodologies, to just see, how they all work, right? And talk about tight and loose, okay? So let's see. Let's start with tight, like really tight drawing, okay? So this is us going from small to big in a sense. So I can look at our model here and say, you know what, I'm just going to like try and draw them, right? So like, I'm going to grab black. And I see that curl on his head there and a couple of other bumps. And I'm going to kind of make my way down here. I should put a timer on this, right? It's like, we'll do about a minute or two of this, okay? Getting to his ear, I look at the ear compared to the hair. It's very thin shape up there. It's kind of like this. I look at his hair again. His hairline comes out from there, and he's got this curve. It's like this. Now, this is good. It's good for observation, right? Like I have to really look, especially since I'm drawing in such a small confine. It's like almost a little magnifying glass in a sense, right? I don't know what the rest of the picture is really doing. So I really have to take my time to gain the accuracy on this. And if I get one shape off, then that means the next shape is off and the next shape is off and so on, right? So I really have to watch what I'm doing. Get a pretty cool looking drawing out of this, I have to say. In fact, stylistically, I kind of like it. It's funny. I made his eye look to to the right. He's looking more straight on. And here, I'm going to try to get down here a little quicker. Let's see, I want to get here and get here. Maybe get up to the shoulder, right? And then his thumb is sticking out there. Maybe I draw into his thumb a little bit, right? And his hand, his finger is here, and that's going to go underneath his knuckle there, right? Maybe I jump over here, got his brow sticking out, his cheekbone. So, I'm following the contours, I'm measuring a lot, I'm paying attention in this like little microcosm, that I'm in, and just trying to get this stuff right, right? So you can see I'm probably about a minute and a half, 2 minutes in, I've gotten this far. So what's good about it? Wow, I'm seeing a lot of detail. I think it helps with like copying, right? And like sight and seeing is good. I might even get texture out of this. I had a teacher that taught me how to do this. I did this for many years, to tell you the truth. So, you can get texture out of your line, right? It could cause a lot of stress, I have to say. I could get a lot of stress out of like, oh my God, am I going to get this right? Because right now I don't know. I put at least 2 minutes into the top, and I don't know how it's going to go down here. I may end up with something that is not well understood, right? That doesn't really look like what the model is doing, you see? And I copied my way through this. Now, because I know how to draw, I kind of, in my copying, understood what I was drawing. But if I didn't, I'm just purely trusting my eyes, right? It's kind of scary. It's almost in the opposite. I was going to say it's like driving blindfolded or something, right? It's like I'm just going to trust that I know my way there on how to get from A to B without even like looking or something, right? I just don't know if I'm going to make it or not, right? So a little hair raising on that end. I mean, it's kind of fun in a sense, the hair raising this, but my chance of success, I think, is pretty low on this. If you did 5 years of this, I think you'd get faster. I think your measuring would get really good, right? Would it be forceful? Probably not, right? And I think it takes time. I think it really takes quite a bit of time to learn this way, okay? So that's version one. Another version, which many of you may have seen before, is really just to try and get angles and copy this stuff down, right? So I don't know. I don't know where I want to start this. Let's start with like the top of his arm, right? Just so I'm somewhere different than I was before. Try a different brush here too. So I'm going to go faster, but I'm going to shape everything out. I'm going to angle it out. So this is like the arm. See a lot of schools that teach like this, teachers that teach like this, right? Like, let's just block it out. It also ends up being, a way that a lot of drawing teachers teach for students that want to go into painting, which I have to say, admittedly, drives me a little bonkers because it kind of discredits drawing, which obviously I do not think is a good idea. It's not fair, right? It's like, hey, we're just going to paint. So this guy, this phase, I just need to block things out so I can kind of fill it in and paint it, right? I'm just doing a preliminary painting in essence with my line art, right? So I do this kind of thing. You see, and I just block it out, block it out, block it out. You see? I'm just kind of angling stuff in, angling it in. Right, angling the shadows would become shapes, right? Like down here would be a shape underneath the arm, you see? Right, and all this stuff gets like blocked out like this. Right? So here's his eye angle, nose, his mouth, right? Angle, 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 angle. I got his leg. This goes in a little bit, and then I got his leg poking out here. And I see, like I said, I see a lot of people draw like this. Pros, draw like this. And they kind of scratch it out like I'm doing right now as well. Still kind of takes a while, and I'm really just copying the angles to get myself some shapes, basically, right? Like this. Okay. That's all I'm really like getting out of this. And then I could paint this, and I can keep pushing the minutia of this, right? I'd be like, okay, now that goes in, then it actually cuts in like that. This actually kind of goes up and apex as it comes down. So a lot of this stuff goes on, and I'm like I said, I'm kind of scratching. I'm going back and forth, and kind of scratching my way around like this, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All right, so that gets me to here, right? So now we have these two options, right? Really slow, kind of medium slowness, straight. It's for measuring and measuring of angles, measuring of distances, lots of measuring, lots of scratching back and forth, right? Then there's this third method, which is, again, I'm going to stay really loose and just try to figure things out, right? I'm going to try to use the force line more here too, because my goal is to try to understand the whole figure, right? So like what's happening here? I'm going to try to get form, right? I see this roundness in there. I see this force because the rib cage is like pushing out. And I just want to stay loose, right? I just want to throw this all down because I don't know if the measurements are right or not yet. So I'm not going to be 100% right away. I'm just kind of sketching things out. And I'm being super crude, right? Very crude, right? Very crude drawing, right? But I'm getting my ideas down. This leg is coming out, so I want that leg coming out. Right, here's the shoulder. A little bit of scribble, a little bit of force, right? Kind of going back and forth with those. When I mean scribble, I mean back and forth, back and forth, back and forth versus going in one direction like this. Then it becomes a little more forceful, right? So a little more clarity. I'm like, oh, that energy is going that way, and that's going to break that way. And let me connect these two, right? His head's tilting, so I'm just roughing in like an egg here, an ellipse. His ears like popping out here. All right, so something like that. Okay. And like I said, I'm sketching, right? Sketching it out. So in 2 minutes, I'm here, which or less than 2 minutes. Personally, I think that's better than this or this. Right here, I've got roughed out shapes. I have a whole body here, which is good, but I have no form in here. I have no force in here, right? Right here, I'm already getting some shapes, and I have force, and I have form. Whoops. Here, I have a little bit of detail in one area. It looks good because that one little area has a lot of information, right? So our eyes can look at it. But man, this is such high risk. This is like putting all money on black, on a roulette table, right? I just don't know. It's a 50-50 shot if I'm going to pull this all off or not. And I'm not learning how to draw, the skill side of drawing. What I mean by that is understanding form and force and shape design. I'm learning how to see better. I'm learning how to copy better. That's what I'm really doing here. Okay. Right. So if I get here, I'm thinking of a few things. I'm thinking about the force of things. I'm trying to connect the whole body. I'm staying really loose. I'm getting form in here. Right. I'm doing lots of different things. Got some shape going on. Right. And since I'm being so loose, um, it gives me the chance to investigate and explore, like I was saying, right? And then I could start tightening up this line if I want, right? So I'm like, does that feel right? I'm looking at the width of the body. Is the elbow far enough? No, it's not, right? Like this can come out here more. I'm looking at this negative space in here, right? Like that can be out there more, right? But I could still like take my time, block this stuff out. Like here, let me see if I can get the waistline in here. So his shorts go down and then up, right? So that, and I rough that out, it gives me a sense to really understand like the form of it all, right? There's his crotch, pelvis is in here. So I really like this idea and I like the feeling, I have to say, the experience of drawing this way, which is, kind of light and swift, right? I'm drawing fast and lightly, and it's giving me the chance to like block things out. I can see because I'm sketching if things are right or wrong. I have room to improve it, right? I got time to fix it. Uh, and again, I'm learning how to draw, right? Not only am I like copying, right? I'm trying to get stuff right, but I do it under experience, not under pressure, right? Man, I can't tell you, how many students come in again to learn at drawingforce.com, right? And again, the irony is the more of a beginner an artist is, the more uptight they are. Yeah, that's the truth. The more of a beginner, typically the more uptight, right? It's very rare that I get somebody who's a beginner and comes in loose. Okay. Usually they come in very uptight, and the first thing I got to teach them is psychological. It's actually not physical. It's you got to learn to loosen up. You got to relax, right? This is supposed to be fun, right? We're not building rocket ships here, right? Like this is fun. We're learning how to draw. We want to learn how to get our way around the page and how to discover the model. We want to see the forces. We want to try to do that loosely, right? Like figure the stuff out. You see how I'm wrapping? I'm trying to get edges that I think are right. I'm trying to get the shapes right. And I'm kind to myself, right? Like be kind to yourself, meaning, I'm giving myself time to learn here and figure this out and get it right, instead of rushing into it. Okay. Now, years of practice, and you'll be able to do what I just did here in 30 seconds, right? Because you've learned how to put in so much mileage, right? It's like driving, you put in so much mileage that at some point you're like a masterful driver, right? Because you've been pounding on the miles. You've been um, learning how to draw because of how much you draw, right? You learn how to drive because of how much you drive. You don't become a masterful driver just because you got in the car. You also don't become a masterful driver from just sitting in the car, right? From just sitting in the car and like studying the book, right? The way that you learn how to drive is by doing the driving, you know? I used to say all the time, there's another pretty big figure drawing instructor out there that is, I think, really good at drawing and teaching form, like form of figures. And he was in Los Angeles, and I was teaching in LA at the time. So I would come across a lot of his students, right, while I was teaching in Los Angeles. And I remember I used to love that because I'd be like, okay, this is awesome. You've already learned from this guy how to get form into your work, which is awesome because I don't have to worry about it so much, right? And trying to get that through to you, right, for you to understand it. I said, so what's going to happen in my class is imagine that what you've been learning this whole time from this other teacher is how to build, the race car and sit in it. And I'm going to teach you finally how to drive this thing and what it feels like to drive it, right? That's the experience we really want here, right? We want that energy, moving around, right? Moving around the page to figure this stuff out and feel force, right? So force is driving the car, not building the car, right? Even this is just kind of like sketching out the shape of the car, right? So here I'm sketching out the car, here I'm looking at the stitching on the seat, and what I'm trying to teach you guys is drive the car, right? Really feel what it does. Get all the cylinders going there, right? Like let's feel everything. And the way you do that is using force, form, and shape, right? Now, like I said, I've been sitting here and sketching. I've been kind of taking my time with this, but that's okay. I think it's okay at the beginning. Take your time, figure this stuff out. It's not good to take your time because you're doing this. It's good to take your time because you're doing this and you're constantly improving it, right? Like you're learning and you're inside of your own drawing, you're learning. I'm like, oh, there's kind of more form here. I want to get the roundness of this better. I want to get the head built out more correctly, whatever it is that you're doing, right? But that's what you're working on, right? That's what you're working on. As long as you're working, I guess is my point, right? Like that's what you want to keep doing, all right? I really don't want to get into the details of the face of this. That's not really what I'm here for, to make a point of. right? That's when I can go here and I can take this face and stick it on this head. Okay. So I'm hoping what you've seen in just this first pass is 3 different approaches. One is like this magnifying glass I'm holding right now. Like I'm going to draw this model like this. You see, this is what my eyes and my brain are doing. Like I'm here. So where's the rest of the model, right? Where's the rest of the pose? What's going on? And I'm doing this in the meantime. And that is tough, right? Really tough. Forget about hierarchy, forget about force, forget about the gestalt of the body, trying to understand the whole figure. You're just doing this, right? Just crawling around, right? See? Do I think there's some value to this? Hell yeah, I do. But not at the beginning. I think work your way to this. Work your way to earning the fact that you could just eat dessert all day long. Okay, right? And here, the other one, here we're just, we're just blocking out shapes and measuring, right? It's probably the most boring of the 3, I must say. And I still don't have everything down, even with the amount of time I put into this, So again, what I'm trying to recommend is you're trying to use force, form, and shape and let yourself doodle around and be loose. Even the students on drawingforce.com, I think they get a misconception of just how much their obligation should be to the model. And I think the more successful students are kind of the sloppier ones in a sense, to just try to discover and find, right? Here, let's go to the more pen-like one. So these are the force brushes, by the way. And if you are curious, and they are on the website, if you go under courses, believe it or not, at the bottom is the force model pack and also the brushes that I'm using here. So this one is called Animator's Notes. It's, it's like a pen, right? So let's kind of pen our way through here. It's like, oh, this is like here and it's round. Right? I'm going to be kind of doodly here. I'm going to purposely try to like draw like this so you guys can see what this looks and feels like. I'm sketching. To me, this is sketching. This is not sketching. Like little lines, scared little lines, really, right? I was teaching a student that I live in the Portland area now, that was up in Portland, and we were doing a lot of, so I met with them and we taught for, I taught them for 3 hours to look at like perspective, right? We were working on location. And, it was interesting to draw on location. I haven't done that in a little while, a couple of years now, right? And with COVID and all. And I realized like, oh, I do the same thing there that I do with the figure, except I rough in the perspective very quickly to get a composition put together, right? So it's the same thing. It's like I might have a frame here, and then I say, oh, well, here's this. I want this vanishing point here. Maybe the other one's out here. I might rough in very quickly some extension lines, right? Like so. And then go, oh, there's a person standing there, and there's another one here. Right, and there's maybe like a group of them, and I remember that we were in this mall, right? There's like a wall that was over here, and then there was like a restaurant down here. So I kind of do these like big blocking out of things, but it was a lot of sketching of verticals and horizontals and diagonals, because that's really all that perspective is made of, and then getting people there in scale, right? And we would start doing stuff like this, and before you knew it, you started having a scene that was going on. It's like, oh, there's pipes on the ceiling, right? Like this for air conditioning and heating and so on, right? You see? And then there'd be like tables out here for people to eat at, right? So anyway, to me, this feels like this. It's just that it's perspective, right? So the goal there is to get the perspective sketched in loosely, block in loosely all the like major shapes and forms of that space and get the people in there and so on, right? So the angles here create the perspective. So that's like the vehicle. What I teach, of course, is force, right? So force and then form and shape are the vehicles for drawing the figure. Why? Because rhythm right? Because rhythm lets me get through the figure quickly. So I'm trying to get this. Here I'm using angles to get to perspective. And here I'm using force lines to get to rhythms, right? And those rhythms lead me through the body, right? And then I can get the forms and everything to work with that, right? So the figures are alive, let's say. Here's just a quick doodling around, right? I am looking at a lot of her shape to get this, right? So you can see how powerful shape is. I'm looking at the silhouette, right? But I also need to know like why the silhouette looks like that. This is because I could see the bottom of her foot, right? Let's see, and her arm is coming flying out of here. It's like right next to her leg. It's like this is a hyperextended elbow right here, and then her arm comes out past this. So like I said, I'm purposely drawing with this with a pen. I want it to almost feel very sketchbooky, like pennish, right? So there, I've got already the gist of my gesture drawing. You see what I'm saying? Right? And this has been very noodled out. Now, going back to those other processes. So this really didn't take that long, and I have like a whole figure, right? I can get in her top here because that would give me form, right? Like that would be great, right? To get her top in there. I started drawing her shorts in here, as you can see, right? So that gives us form, right? But in sketching, I'm getting force, form, and shape. I understand that the rhythm here is going to go from here to here. I was looking at this crazy like push up over here and this S torso, how it's sweeping down and around to her rear end. And then this went down the leg and then to the back, right? So we came from here, went down through here, went up and over, down and around, and back over here. And that's what lets me, again, see the whole system, lets me draw this fast. I already knew that before I even started drawing. I just looked at her and said, okay, like here's the path I'm going to take, right? That's what you want to find, right? That's at least, again, with what I teach, that's what we want to find. So again, why loose, right? Because in loose, look at how much work, right? Look at the work I'm putting in, right? What is the work? The work is drawing, right? The physical work is actually drawing lines, right? So the more you do of that, the better you're going to get at it. And I'm getting to learn different skills here, right? I'm trying to figure out force. Again, I'm trying to figure out form, construction, volume, anatomy. And I'm also looking at the silhouette and the shapes within the silhouette, right? And all these three things are me drawing, right? The more I do this looping around thing or I create turning edges, right, the better I get at that. I start understanding how stuff is built, right? Again, if I were to go the other way, let's do one of these like this, right? Let's say I started the rib cage again. I would do this. I would come down. I'd say, oh, her hip is there. Kind of goes down and then bows out. I want to get the shape of that. So I'm looking at this shape. I like how it sort of pinches off very, very quickly here like this. All right. So what's good about this again? It's really helping me see, right? Like see the details, right? But what am I losing at the risk of what, right? I just lost all that big story stuff that I just talked about, right? Now, I remember there was a period when I got back from Disney Animation, I was drawing like this, but holding on to the big picture. And I got to say that was actually pretty damn exciting because I had the drawing ability to hold on to the big picture, but I was trying to draw it in a small picture manner. It was exciting because again, it's high risk. Like it felt like gambling. It was like, man, this is super high risk. Am I going to make it or not? And I enjoyed that actually, and I thought I liked some of the drawings I did with that, but I wouldn't do that at the beginning. I did that because I felt confident in my drawing ability. To be able to do that. Or as I said before, you could think of it as, I deserve to eat my candy. Eat the top of the cake before I eat my vegetables. Right. So, allow yourself to work to get to here, but first I think it's better to do the work of understanding force, which isn't a bad cake to eat, at the beginning, right? See here, I don't even have to think how things connect, right? I was like, oh, let me draw the knee because the knee is coming out of the thigh, so I get the knee and back in here. I don't even care that it's connected to the rear end. You see what I mean? It's like no, there's no synergy there. I'm just like trying to draw what I see. Again, not a bad practice. I just don't think it's the best one at the start. And I think it's a slower way of learning how to draw. If I keep going down this path, I'll get really good at copying fast. And then someday I'll actually really start to learn like what I'm drawing. And if the force didn't ever exist, if I somehow miraculously got lucky enough, I might start seeing that things are flowing in some way, right? So, which I think is pretty rare, to actually like witness that without help, without some guidance, which is again why drawingforce.com exists, right? So you can see kind of cool looking drawing. I have to say, I like the look of it. I just don't think it's the best way for you guys to learn, you know, and that's really what I want to share with you today. You want to learn how to draw. I think the fastest way to learn how to draw is to draw fast, and not so much draw fast, but draw loose. You can be slow. You can take your time on a drawing, um, but draw loosely. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself room to figure things out. Right? Yeah, super, super important. Right? All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed today. Today's going to be a little shorter than our typical Force Fridays. I got to get back to the convention. Um, I'm going to try. I'm going to try to see if I can go live during it at all. I might have already done it prior to what you're seeing me do here, or not. So we'll see. Keep your eyes peeled, and hopefully that has happened or will happen over the weekend because this will go up on Friday. But I just want you to know, I will try to make that happen. I'll see if I can get some live footage going so you can see a little bit of the convention. Okay. All right. I hope you enjoyed this Force Friday, and I will see you, or we will see you. Swami Mrityunjay and I will see you next Friday. It'll be right after Thanksgiving. So those of you that are celebrating Thanksgiving, I hope that you have a great holiday with you and your friends and family. And yeah, I will see you then. Take care, guys, and goodbye. See ya.